are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight we will be talking about memories and the paranormal. As always, you can find everything at the website, and that website is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And everything includes all the episodes, links to social media, ways to support the show, and friends of the show, including Jen, the Arcane Observer, who is the co-host of this show and has her own channel as well. And so this should be good. We kind of don't really have any... I was looking for articles on this subject, but they're all basically from scientific points of view, and so not the easiest for me to understand all of it, and so just decided not to go with that. But let's first get this going. Jen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's really hot here where I'm at, and I'm outside so I can hear all the cicadas and everything, but yeah, looking forward to the show, and as always, I'm happy to be here. I'm still working on my channel. You can check that out on YouTube. It's just Jen Arcana, or no, it's the Arcane Observer, I think, but I think it's at Jen Arcana, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I haven't actually tried to search it up, but yeah, I'm trying to put out new content. I don't have a lot of time on my hands, but when I find the time, I try to put something out, you know. But really happy to be here as always.
Yeah, and your link tree is always in the episode descriptions for this show, so
I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. So this came about really, I think, a few different ways. I know you said you've been thinking about it recently, and then it came up over on Troubled Minds as far as memory goes, and it being reliable or not being reliable. And I found that fascinating because I've heard that from a scientific perspective it's not, but also I've heard people that have paranormal experiences say that it very much is for them, you know, depending on the experience. So, and I guess that's kind of where this all came from. So, I don't know. I do feel like I have some memories that are pretty solid of experiences. Others, maybe not so much, even though I still know the basics of them. So happy to hear what you think first, if you want to get this started there, Jen.
Well, it's really neat. Like, a lot of the things I've recounted, the memories I have of them, I'm retelling exactly what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
That will include usually that, you know, I don't remember anything else but exactly what I said. Like, what I recall, that's the incidences that I would have when I was younger, where I would have it's almost like something between night terror or sleep paralysis or something, where I'd wake up and I'd see like a figure outside of my window when I was a child. I don't remember details about almost anything except for just like the dark of the room, you know, that it was, you know, summertime, I think at the time. And then I don't remember any particular details, and it's really except for what I do recall.
Right.
So everything else will be left out. Like the memory just, you know, I could probably recall it through some kind of, you know, I guess regression or something to that effect. But I've actually had some experiences with hypnotists in the past, just one, and I was an unwilling participant, and it was kind of just sprung on me at a moment where I didn't expect it, and it was just a strange monologue that this person I had just met, this lady I just met, and it was so bizarre. I mean, I could go into that and tell that story sometime, but the things that I do recall, there's very specific things that have just like been like set in my memory, and I didn't remember it later in life. I remembered it all throughout my entire life, like the same exact thing when I was, you know, 7, 8, you know, 12, 14, because I've not let myself ever forget it. And so that's kind of where a lot of that comes from. And then I could still see it. What's interesting is there are other memories I have that I know happened, but I have a very hard time seeing it in my mind's eye. But I have this really like strong inner vision, like where I can see things very vividly in my mind, and I can envision things, and I can, you know, pull up a song if I want to and like hear it in my mind, and I can have, I talk things out in my mind sometimes about what I'm planning on doing or what I am doing. So I have a lot of that kind of activity where my mind is really active like that. And I'm really good at like visualizing, from I've been reading, since a little kid for fun, so I read a lot as a kid. So just a very strong visual person that way in the mind. But it's true also that that faint line between was I dreaming or was it a memory? That's something I used to think when I was when I was little and even in a teen, that it did actually happen, that I was not asleep, that I hadn't been asleep, that I just rolled over and saw that in my window, like in waking life. And as I became an adult, got much older, I began to think, and I convinced myself until it now that I must have been dreaming. So that's what's changed actually, because when I was growing up, I believed and always had thought that I actually had literally seen this being outside of my window, but it just sounded so impossible about what it could have been because it wasn't a real person, because nothing ever, unless it was, but it did not appear to be. And it was almost something very, I guess, paranormal about it. I didn't know that term at the time, but it was an
Right.
impossible creature. And so I think I convinced myself actually that it had to have been part of some type of dream or sleep paralysis or something like that, or that I was, it was just, but I was also, that was tied in with having nightmares. So I was having a lot of nightmares at the time, as well as I was seeing this creature sometimes at my window. So, it's just a strange way. I think almost as you get older, you're just like, no, it must have been that. Like I had another experience at a house where I heard footsteps in the attic. And I mean loud footsteps. And this was like a crawl space, essentially, no more than like insulation with some boards to walk across. But I convinced myself years later, that happened when I was an adult and had moved out on my own and everything. But I convinced myself that somebody must have somehow got up there. There had been someone up there walking around or something, because I just didn't want to believe that it was what I thought at the time it was. So it's just really strange how memory does work.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny because I don't have I think because of my low vision, I don't have the best visualization in my mind or my memories. But yet there still are a couple things that do stick out in my memories that are visual. Um, Mostly it's that that floating white light with the cat's claw in it at my aunt and uncle's house that I covered in that series of shows we did on my experiences. I can still see that like very clearly in my mind till this day, and that was 30 years ago now. Uh, but then there's some things like the woman's head in the basement. I can visualize it, but I don't know if my visualization is exactly accurate to what it was now. I think it's very close, but I don't know for 100% sure that that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I still know it happened, but it's all this is very tricky. I also think we should do a show on um, hypnosis at some point
Yes.
because there's so much to that and debate about how that works and if that works and how well it works, all those things. And a lot of the most famous cases regarding people that had UFO experiences after the fact, they went through some kind of hypnosis, and there's claims that they retrieve memories, even though, again, the whole practice of it is debated how well it works or whether it works or not. So I think that should be something we add to the list of things to cover at some point.
Yeah, because the experience that I had with hypnosis, and I was going to go study with this person I had found on biofeedback. And there were just a lot of people that I was kind of, getting into contact with. And then there was I'll talk about that at that show that we talk about. But if we do the hypnosis show, that's a great idea. So there's something a lot to be said about it, especially like in the instance I had. I didn't expect it, and I was going to sleep, and they started talking to me as I was going to sleep. And kind of woke, like I was already pretty much asleep, and then they asked me something, and I woke up a little bit, and I was talking to them, and they were talking to me, and they started going into this whole thing. So it was really weird, and I actually had to tell them just to like, I'm going to sleep, stop talking,
Right.
because it was so
Yeah.
weird. It was so weird how they were being about it, and I didn't know them well. It was this lady that I had like literally met like a couple of months prior to that. So it was, and I never really talked to her again after it. It bothered me so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I can understand that. But yeah, the memory thing is fascinating. I feel like there's a lot of my memories of like when I saw the blue lights in the sky, I can still see those pretty well in my mind. But like I said, a lot of memories. Now the funny thing is, I don't have a lot of memories of just regular experience from when I was little, going up until maybe my teenage years. Maybe is where my memories kind of start getting, and even then, like I don't know, memory is weird in that there's something I remember from those years, but there's a lot I don't, and so I'm not sure why or how that works, but there's one thing I do remember from when I was really little, and I only remember a very small part of it, uh, and that was when I found this cord, and I remember I can see in my mind like my fingers, which were tiny, and pulling this cord. And eventually everything fades, but I hear a crash, and then I hear myself crying because apparently I pulled this old-fashioned phone down off a table and it landed on my hand. And in fact, it broke. It split my pinky finger a little bit down the middle of it, like so where I have like a line in that
Yeah.
finger now.
Yes,
Um,
it's so weird
yeah,
because like you remember
yeah,
the injuries. Yeah, I do too. But I
yep.
do have I dislocated my shoulder when I was about 6, and I remember that really
Mm,
well. And I remember but it's interesting. I had a scar when I was a kid on my knee, and I still have it. And I had no idea where I got it from, but I didn't remember it at all. But when I was littler than that, I don't know how old, like 3 or something, I had been running and I'd fallen on glass. Like there was like a piece of broken bottle or something, and that's what that scar is from. But I don't remember that. But see, I remember other things. I remember one way that I remember that house on the like in deep South Texas, East Texas, Louisiana border. I remember very clearly two different instances aside from the paranormal instances where I got injured. One was there was a clawfoot bathtub, and I was sitting on the edge of that bathtub, and I slipped into the corner up between the wall and the tub. Like I remember that
I know.
really well because I was sitting up on the edge, and I just went whoop on the other side and was stuck there. And then on another occasion, there was a one of those I guess gas heaters that has a little bit of flame in it in the bathroom. And the same thing, I remember like backing up into it once after getting out of the bathtub when I was a little kid, and I backed into it and burnt my back. And I remember that too, really clearly. So it's just strange the things you do and don't remember, but they all have, I guess, are carrying important information for survival. So you're like, well, I won't ever do that again.
Yeah. That reminds me of my first year at summer camp. I ever went to when I was a kid, I went to the summer camp for kids with low vision or no vision. And first time I was there, I the first week it was a 2 week thing, and I got stung by a bee right above the right eye. And because we went to this, we were supposed to play softball or baseball or something with a beeper ball kind of thing. And we got there, and the entire field, like everything where we were going to play, was just covered in bees. And the counselors had us sit to one side, and of course the bees were flying around, and one of them landed on my head. And counselor said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just don't move, and it won't do anything." And then, bam, right above the eye.
Oh,
Um,
that's horrible.
yeah, I
That's
don't even remember. I don't remember that counselor like at all, as far as what they looked like or sounded like.
just the
I don't
voice or
know.
something.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically, and that's it. And then just the pain, and just being so mad at that person. because they basically, whether they knew it or not, they lied. But
Yeah.
and then that same 2 weeks, I sprained my ankle one day too,
Oh.
and I don't. My mom says that I wanted to go back, which is hilarious to me now because I feel like if that would have happened years later, I would have said, "Nope, I'm done, no more."
Okay.
But who knows? But yeah, so I remember those things pretty well, and the pain from them, and because that sting above my right eye closed, it basically almost closed it up to the point where I had
Right.
no night vision for some days after that.
My goodness. And
Yeah.
it's funny too, we're talking with the whole memories and how you recall them and everything. Like when dreaming and everything, isn't it strange how we can remember dreams from, like a decade ago or
Hmm.
further back than that even, as if they actually happened in real life, but somehow like why did we choose to remember them so clearly? And it's almost like it's easier to remember the dreams, than some other things, which I think that's really odd, you know?
Yeah. It's like how I have, and throughout my life I've had dreams of places I've been to, and I remember those dreams better in some cases than the places going there in person, or at least for some of them. But then others where it's just like, I don't know, I keep going back there, even when it's not necessarily a paranormal dream. Going there, I still see them while I'm sleeping. Um, but
Oh,
in
give
the
me like
chat
5
here,
minutes, James. I'll be right back. I have a
yes, no
thing
problem.
to. One second.
So Matt's in the chat here says I was in a bad accident when I was 3, and I remember it. That's rough. Yeah, I can't imagine that because that's a lot. But yeah, I'm just trying to think of other things that happened. I remember visiting with family when I was a kid. Um, the whole house, my grandparents' house, being full of people and kids and everything. Uh, I remember that pretty well. But then that house keeps appearing in my dreams to this day, and some of them are regular dreams, and some of them are like out of body and or alternate parallel universe dreams. And most of them now at this point are those. But I keep going back there, and then my aunt and uncle's house, and both houses. I mean, my family doesn't own either of those houses anymore, but I still keep going back there. Um, Same with the house that used to be my dad and former stepmom's house. Once in a while, I'll still go back there. And sometimes it's just a regular dream, other times it feels pretty real. So, again, I don't know how that works, but yeah. So, memory is a weird thing, and it does seem to interact with dreams, uh, or at least be connected to them. And yeah, I'm not sure how, but it's definitely a connection there. I mean, dreams with everything. Dreams seem to be a connection to all these different levels of reality, as we've talked about before. And so yeah, I'm not sure, but people talk about having these memories from when they were a kid, when they had paranormal experiences. A lot of the posts I find online from people that talk about their paranormal experiences, they're adults, but they remember something that happened to them when they were a kid, and it's years or even in some cases multiple decades later, which is it's fascinating how often I come across that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's funny because I think that in my instance a lot of times what's happened is I actually remember that part of my childhood because of those memories that I've shared
Mm,
with you and with Ricky and others. It's like I remember that part of my life because of that, it seems at times, which I think is really odd.
yeah,
Like my whole memory of that window of time is built around the memory of that because that's why I remember it at all. Otherwise, I think it would have been unremarkable and I might have remembered just normal things like, family, get-togethers and things like that. But it seems like those have become so that they took up more, you know, I don't know, I guess I was so fixated on it because I just
right.
never I couldn't understand how it fit into the world that I was dealing with, and I was trying to figure that out, I think.
Yeah, that reminds me of when I was a kid. I do remember this that I used to always whenever I was with family and especially all the kids and there's people doing fireworks outside by me, but Um, but anyway, I would always be a lot of times when, especially when they were running around and everything, I would always hang out in one corner of the room so that I wouldn't get bumped into or have anything stepped on or whatever. And I remember doing that from when I was a kid, and I have like several memories of this. But there's one apparently that I don't remember, but it happened um, when I was little. My grandma one day pulled my two of my cousins aside because they were running around, and they had apparently noticed that I was hanging out in one corner. And my grandma noticed that, and because they were kind of joking around about it. And I think I've told the story before, but it's always, to me, it's kind of funny because it's true. That she pulled them aside and said, "Come here," and then they came over to her, and she got this like two pieces of fabric and said, "Put these on, wrap these around your head, put it over your eyes," and then they did, and said, "Okay, now walk around," and they kept on bumping into things, and she told them to stop, and before they got hurt or anything like that, and she said that's what it's like for him all the time. And to this day,
That's so
those two,
smart. That's such a good way to put it for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And to this day, those two cousins, like, I've always gotten along with them well. Um, maybe better than, I mean, not that I have anything wrong with my cousins, problems with my cousins, but those two in particular were always somewhat close as kids, like growing up. And I think it's because of that, possibly. You know, they realized what was going on. And so yeah, but I don't remember that experience, but I remember similar experiences where I was just hanging out in a corner, and I still do that. And even though now it's not as worried now, but I still, if I can find a corner seat in the room when I go somewhere, that's where I like to sit because that way I'm out of the way. So
Well, that's what works. A lot of times people just stick with it,
yeah,
because it just makes most sense. It reminded me of like when people look at pictures and like I did that a lot when I was a kid. There were at my grandpa's house, he had like this several big photo albums,
mm,
and my family was really big on like, I guess this is probably every family, but like pictures in the hallway of generations and generations of people, you know, on the
right,
walls, and then pictures of yourself and everyone else and everywhere at different times and periods of time that you weren't even aware they were taking pictures. And I was just always fascinated by looking at those. And just it was so strange to see yourself at different times where, of course you do not remember it. But
yeah,
it's obviously you were there and that's what was going on. So it's so strange, really, when you think of that too, you know.
yeah. Now, one thing I've noticed with me, with pictures of me, especially even as I get older, I can see pictures of me and from like as an adult, and I still don't remember clearly like what was going on that day or where those pictures. Well, I mean, sometimes I can tell where the picture was taken, but I don't have clear memories of that event in my mind, even though I know I was there. So, but I don't know how much of pictures. I mean, is that the same with everyone, or is it probably different? I would imagine. I think it seems like memory is
I
different for
guess it's
everyone too.
different for different people, but for me it's similar to you, like with that situation. And
Yeah.
it's interesting too the way that people like the keeping of a diary, like a
Mm,
logbook of their day-to-day events. Like I did that a lot, of course, when I was younger. I kept for a long time. I've talked about this a little bit. I kept a journal for like when I'd wake up, I'd write down what I'd seen while I was asleep. And then I had a daytime diary as well. And I did that for years and eventually just quit doing it. But people in the past used to do that too. And they would be able to pick back years behind them and go to any particular day and know exactly what happened because they have a firsthand account that they had written down. I always thought that was really fascinating and I was always impressed by that. But it's so strange how helpful that would be. But it's even if you were to do like a recording or something like that, but how helpful that would be. And I've heard about people even making it well in their later years with situations like dementia or Alzheimer's, of them doing that daily and leaving
mm,
messages for themselves the following day
right.
of like telling them again of what had happened, and kind of keeping a handle on it that way. And I think people it's just in a very interesting way. And then I remember hearing an account too of a woman who she had this weird talent where she was able to recall. You could say to her any date or time. They can like say like 1972, May 2nd, and she'd remember. She could recall clearly what was going on that day, and it could be any day. It was like a weird what would you call that? Just a special type of genius, I suppose
Right.
I would consider it to be,
Yeah.
but it was just a weird quirk, but she was able to do it. She was on being interviewed by someone, and she was almost just sort of an anomaly, but that's fascinating. She was able to do that. So it's somewhere in, I imagine it's in everyone's mind. All of that is logged somewhere. All of the information must be logged somewhere in their great brains, just logged away. And what happens with all of that too? It's just, I suppose it's not always on recall because maybe we don't have the ability to compartmentalize as well as we would need to be able to, so we just take what we need from it, and then everything else is just sort of logged away for some reason.
Yeah, that is an amazing thing about all this because memory does seem to it's amazing how some memories stick, some don't. Some memories stay and some don't. I always wonder too, I mean, when memories fade away, where do they go? Is that a physical part of the brain that is, I don't know, changing, dissolving, reforming, whatever, when it does that? Or is there something else involved? Because I don't know, I
I
mean, how
hope not.
closely, yeah, I don't know how closely the brain is, like the energy and or the physical matter in the brain is linked with that consciousness that's there. I mean, that's a whole other huge
Well,
question, but yeah.
I think that the mind extends out from the body. They have some, studies they've done about that the mind extends out. It's some sort of field to itself.
Mm,
So I don't know if it's you're just carrying it with you, but it's not, you know, prominent on it's not on the ready, for you. But a lot of times when people get like my grandfather, he got Alzheimer's disease,
hmm.
and he could recall things then from his childhood or for when he was younger, but couldn't remember what happened a couple of weeks ago, of course, that was significant, something that should have stood out and been obvious to him, but he couldn't remember. Or even something that had happened, just 5 years ago, but he could remember things from much further back in very clear detail. I always thought that was really amazing. And then I remember too that people I've met and myself also, if you have something that you just really don't want to forget, and so you like keep an artifact or you'll keep something, you know, especially people who have had a lot of loss where they essentially like they refuse to allow themselves to forget. And so, they'll do drawings of people or they'll try to for fear that they may accidentally forget what it was like or what they looked like or what they had said, they'll make an intentional purpose to keep it in memory, fresh in memory. And then by the end of it, though, say you've been alive for 80 years, and it's just a terrible thing, really. But I don't know. That's kind of dark. I don't really think that's a good topic to talk about, but about people forgetting. But I
Right.
don't know that you ever do forget. I do think that it doesn't ever go anywhere. I think it's stored in the trillions of, neurons that are just constantly, you know, never dissipating and staying with the person. They have cellular turnover every 7 years, but it's all sort of held on nevertheless. I mean, I think at the end, it's all there for you to gather it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it is weird how all this happens. I think I had something a minute ago and I lost it. So, but looking at the chat here, yeah. So, pictures. So Sonia in chat says pictures of me evoke memories. Uh, there's something about a TV show there. Okay, no worries, Jen. Um, yeah, that is fascinating. I do also I've noticed too with me, I have memories still to this day of family members, at least in most cases that have passed on. Um, I can still remember their voices clearly, and I think that's again, because of my low vision, I can't describe them to you visually, but I still remember that. Also, places, I don't know what it is, but I can still remember them. In my dreams, I can see them, but I can't easily describe them to anyone as far as, again, what they look like when I'm awake. So, but yeah, all this is definitely connected, and yeah, I don't know. I think the recording of things definitely does help. It's something I need to look into how to record my voice on my phone because I wouldn't mind doing that for dream journaling and all that kind of stuff. I know that trying to write it down on my computer or after I wake up is not going to be. I don't know. I'm not ready for a few minutes or so after I wake up to or get up to try to type anything out on my computer. Like just my brain's not there yet. So if I had something I could just type or not type, click on my phone, which is a newer phone now, um, then maybe I could actually do that. I also may try to take a picture of that finger that has the line in the middle of it because it's really weird looking. But yeah, and I mean then there's the whole uh, abduction experience I had, which is odd that I still remember even though it was over a decade ago now. Uh, I do wonder about the interaction between other entities and our memories and what that looks like and for all the whole range of good to neutral to bad. Um, you hear about that whole thing with screen memories and things like that with when it comes to alien contact. Uh, but there doesn't seem to be any unless the whole thing was a screen memory. But the abduction experience I had seems to be I remember it pretty well. Uh, but yeah, recording everything does that's something I need to look into more because um, especially now I have so many dreams these days. I feel like more than I used to, which is probably another thing we should do a show on, and all the different weird interactions between dreams and other anomalous things. Sleep. I mean, yeah, that's probably something else we should do at some point. Um, but
What was it?
oh, just
I just
dreams,
like
just
yes.
sleep and dreams and all that, and the connection between all the other anomalous stuff.
Oh, I had the wildest dream. Like, so when I was little, of course, I'd have those scary dreams, and I can barely remember them. It was just like that I would have these very scary dreams. I remember some of it a little bit. But in particular, when I was like, I guess I was about 14 or 15, I had this dream that was so vivid and so crazy. And like, I still remember it perfectly clearly. Like and it was so vivid and impactful that, I mean, it completely just changed the way that I even viewed the world at the time. Like it was that impactful for me. So dreams are very powerful things.
Yeah, and I have a memory of a dream that I had when I was in my teens that I'm pretty sure was just a dream, but I still remember it so well, which is odd because it's visual stuff, and I don't normally retain a lot of visual stuff very well in my mind. But I guess we could make this a memory and dream show because they do kind of connect. Um, I had this dream that there was in my town where I live, there was this road, and it was right next to an old motel that's still there. But in the dream, the street that goes behind it was not there, and it was instead there was this like drop, like a drop or a dip, and the road went down, and there was this like archway, this brick archway, which didn't make any sense. That's not there. And I walked into it, which is odd because I don't know anyone in the area. And I found myself in this little arcade room, like video game machines were there. And there was a couple people near the machines, but I remember all their faces, basically they looked like zombies, is what I thought they were at the time. And I've never really been into the whole zombie thing. Not because they were scary or not scary, it doesn't matter, just never really into it. And I walked through this little room, it was more like a hallway almost, into this other room. They had like these two picnic tables in it, and then wooden walls, wooden picnic tables, and windows in the walls that had like food menu items on them, prices and all that. And I just remember walking in there, and there was a couple more of these, whatever they were, in the room, and then everything faded. But I still remember it, like, I can still see parts of that room in my mind today. And this was at least 30, maybe 20, at least 25, maybe 30 years ago, too,
That's
that I had
amazing.
this dream. Yeah, it's really odd.
And it really stuck with you, I guess, just because it was so vivid, I suppose.
Yeah, yep.
And I wonder what was happening, in your day-to-day life at the time, at the time that you had the dream.
Well, I was in school, and school was always rough because of my low vision and everything. Um, but other than that, I don't know. Not much else, I don't think. But again, that was 30 years ago, so who knows now? But again, there's nothing. I can't say there was anything paranormal about that dream. That didn't feel like it was real. It didn't feel like there was any presences there directly.
Yeah.
Other than it felt like I mean, I saw these figures, so they felt like they were there, but there wasn't any extra sense that they were real in any way. Um, so yeah, just odd that I had that regular dream that still sticks with me today.
Okay, so like, I don't know if you want to hear. I could tell that dream that I
Yeah,
had.
sure,
Okay.
if you want to.
Um, all right. Well, okay, so in the dream, um, it started out where there was like this field. Like there was a field of tall grass. And I was walking towards this tree line, and there was all these trees, like a tree line into like a forest almost or something. And there was like a big lake next to the trees, like past the
Hmm.
grass. There was this big lake, and I could see, the sky and everything, and it was like this sunny day. And there was this particular tree, and like all of these little kids were playing around this tree. Like they were running around it and running up on other trees that had fallen over, like they were running on them and bouncing on them. And they were all like school age little kids. And like I say, I was probably 14 or 15 when I had the dream. Anyway, I was walking up and I was just watching them like you would like watch kids at like a playground or something. And there were these two, and they were wearing like look like old fashioned clothes in the dream. Like they look like they were like, I don't know, like just it stood out. They looked like it was some other time period or something.
Right.
And there were these two particular kids that ran off from the group, and I kind of watched them because they were running towards where the water line was. And I started walking towards where they were going, and there was like a deadwood tree next to that lake. And they ran over to that tree and they were around it, and that really stood out. And then in particular, I noticed the boy, and the boy was probably like 7 years old or something, maybe. And he ran over to the water line. At no point, they didn't seem to know that I was there. They didn't interact with me in any way. They didn't look at me or anything. I was just watching them. And the boy runs over to the water line and he pulls out of nowhere this trash bag, like a black trash bag. Like he like pulled it out of his pocket or something. And he like lifts it up into the air and like he dips it down into the water. And the whole thing went like it's like when the moment the bag hit that water, the whole light of the dream like went red light. I could see like everything was like in a red, like Mars or something. Like everything went red. And he lifted up some of the water out of the lake in that bag. And he started to run towards the trees that went into that forest. And I was following him. And he went into the forest and I was watching where he was going. And he was like kind of just at a steady pace going into the forest, like on this, not really even a path, just going into the forest. And I was just kind of stepping over fallen wood and all this different stuff. And I was just kind of watching where he was going. And I wasn't really running. I was just kind of moving almost like in slow motion. And I saw him come to this clearing. And at this he came to this clearing that looked like there was like a like a stump, like a huge wooden stump that was like where a tree had fallen over or something. And there was something sitting on that tree stump, like in the circled clearing in that forest. And the boy went right into the clearing and right up to that tree stump where that figure was sitting. And it's so weird. But anyway, I'll just tell it like it happened. The figure was like talking or gesturing to the boy, and the boy had like the bag behind his bag, and the figure was like the being was like, asking him what he had behind his back and like gesturing to him to show him what was behind his back, and he showed him the bag. And the instant that the kid brought the bag out in front of him and showed it to that being on that stump, the thing on the stump, on the tree stump, looked at me like I was like in these bushes, like behind these trees and everything and sticks and stuff, just watching them. And at that point, I just been kind of watching a spectator effect.
Right.
But then it like turned and looked at me, and it looked at me like it knew I'd been there the whole time, but it like looked at me. I was looking at it, and then I woke up,
Mm.
and it was so intense, and it was so strange because the whole time I was looking at that being that was sitting on that tree stump, I
Mm-hmm.
was looking at it, watching it gesture, watching it kind of maybe even wasn't talking. It was like it was gesturing, and there was like this sort of unspoken exchange going on between the kid and that being, and I could not remember. There was nothing there. Like I saw it and didn't at the same time. Like
Right.
I couldn't tell you what it looked like. I couldn't tell you what color it was. I couldn't tell you what it did. It like definitely had arms and like was gesturing, but it's the strangest thing. And it was so bizarre. And I've never forgotten it. And it has stood out to me as one of the most potent things. And I remember it clear as day still. It was that profound. And it impacted me. And I thought that I had seen like, something. And I never ever forgot it. And it completely changed my whole perspective on basically anything and everything. It was just because it was so strange. I never had a dream like that. And
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Matt's house says tree spirits. That's fascinating. It's
Oh,
fascinating
I
idea
thought it
there.
was like, yeah, I thought it was like God or the devil or so. I thought it was so impactful and
Mhm.
profound and so clear to me. And it was the last thing I expected to see. And it was just very impactful.
Yeah, definitely. No, that would be. Um, that's like I've had dreams after and this was about 10, uh, some years ago now. But I had dreams after my grandma passed. I had dreams of that house and me being in that house, but everything was dark. It was like it was nighttime there, and I was laying on the couch in the living room, and I would see my grandma moving around sometimes, like she would normally do that, even though she'd passed. And a couple times when I saw her, she noticed me, and I felt like we weren't supposed to be there, and I wasn't supposed to be seeing her.
That's what it felt
And
like.
yeah,
Like it
and it
was
was
like,
really, it was odd because it felt like it was her, but like I said, it felt like because other times I had dreams with her that I've talked about before where there was communication and it felt like it was okay. It was she was there
yeah.
to do that. But some of these, I just wound up in that house, and the whole time I was there, I just felt like I was not supposed to be there. Um,
Everything just, yeah, everything in that dream I'm talking about, like it shifted so much.
right.
And then the way that the being looked at me, the boy didn't. He was like, didn't want to show that bag to him, to that. It was so weird.
Yeah.
And when he looked at me, it definitely did feel like it was like a he. Like I didn't think it was, it was like a thing. It was like, I don't know. It was bizarre. But the way that it did, it was like it like it knew I'd been there the whole time, but it looked at me that particular moment, like, like, oh, and like
Right.
looked at me. It was so strange. And then I have one other dream that I'll tell you
Hmm.
that was so strange. Um, this dream happened like in at that apartment I lived in, where I had many different experiences in this apartment, and I had been doing all kinds of things. Like I had been doing candle gazing and um you know just everything that I could. And I would have dreams, but this dream in particular, so it was really simple. Like I was in the dream, though I was in my 20s when I was having the dream, I was in my early 20s. In the dream, I am like 4 years old or something. And I'm at my grandfather's house. And I'm in the front bedroom, which used to be my mother's room and her sister's room. And then it was also my room at one point. So it was a family home, multiple generations, well, 2.5 generations in it.
Right.
And I'd grown up in it. And in the dream, I'm in the bed and I get up out of the bed and I'm in the room by myself. And I crawl out and I get the stool that's in the room and I pushed it up against my grandfather's dresser that was in the room, that actually was in the room back then. And I pushed it up against the dresser and I climbed up and was standing on the stool at the dresser looking into the mirror that was on the dresser.
Okay.
And I had a feather. I had this like big feather and I held up this feather. I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was like a toddler or something. And I had that feather and the mirror started doing this sort of going backwards. And it was like the same image. I could see myself and it would go back and back and back. And I was just looking at myself and it was going deeper and deeper into the mirror, like it was some kind of tunnel or something. And a mirror, and it was just going back and back and back. And I was just like in this weird, like, I don't know, like it was just, that's all it was. And it did that for a time in the dream. And then it just stopped. And it was me. And I was looking at this creature. And this creature was on the other side of the mirror, like a window. And it had like, I cannot even tell you how wild it looked. It was, if you were to take a lion and it'd be hairless and have like shark skin. It was like a gray, deep gray, and the texture was like of a great white shark or something. Like the texture was clear and everything. It looked like a lion without ears, and all I could see was like its chest and its shoulders and its head, and it looked like a hairless, shark-skinned lion without ears. And it said to me that it said, my name is, and it said like some string of letters. It went like, Z, ZB, ZBD, ZBDE, Z. It spelled out like that. Does that make sense? Like it would repeat
Yes.
the same letters it had said before. And it told me this long slew of letters. And it said, after it got done, I'm coming to call. And it said it like this voice that was like from underwater or something. It was so strange. And it was like from really, like, it was like this strange, and it wasn't moving its mouth. It was like this telepathic message. And it was saying, it said, my name is, and it spelt it out, like I said, in that weird way. And its name must have been like a sentence long. And then it said that. It said, I'm coming to call, which is just a weird way of saying that I'm going to come visit or something, I imagine. And that was it. And I woke up from that dream and I was like, same thing. So I've only had like a handful of these dreams, like 3 or 4, I guess, 2 to 3 or 4, I guess. But in particular, those two. And they stand out so clearly, that it was just so impactfully strange that I'll never forget it. And I have not brought that dream up, but I have mentioned the description of that creature to multiple different people who deal with, like, think they've seen aliens or they know all of the different aliens and so on and so forth. And none of them are really sure. And they'll try to relate it to something because I was like, is that some type of
Right.
alien or something? Or what was it? But it looked like a gargoyle. I've ever seen those old depictions. It
Yeah.
looked like a gargoyle or something. It was wild.
Yeah, it's always fascinating when you have an experience and then you go looking for similar things and you can never quite find. It's like that white thing with the cat's claw in it. That white light with the cat's claw in it.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. Because
I've
you're
been
like, surely there's something
listening.
like this. Yeah.
Yeah, listening to all kinds of shows, looking around on, now for this show, looking around now for experiences. So far, never having found anything like that ever. Um, it's just really odd. So yeah, and like I said, it's one of the few things, I can still visualize. I can't visualize the cat that I remember seeing in that basement. at least not clearly in my mind. Like I know what it was and what it looked like, but that's like that's gone. Yeah, that visual image is gone.
Yeah.
Um,
No, this
but
cat thing, it didn't, I mean,
yeah,
not a cat, like a lion. Like it had
right,
muscles in its head, like you'd see like a tiger or like a leopard or something. And like it had all these muscles and but the structure was identical to a lion, but it didn't have ears. Like it was
right,
so strange. And then the skin of it, and it wasn't scary. I wasn't like scared of it.
right.
I was just I was just staring at it, as it
Yeah,
was saying stuff. Yeah, it was so strange. And nothing ever came of it. There's just this bizarre dream. And it's so difficult because you have a dream like that and you're like, oh my gosh, like,
right.
wow, what was that? But it was a dream.
Yeah, yeah. And there's only a couple other dreams I can think of where I remember it really clearly now. And I know they were because of my eyes being the way they are. They were just kind of like fear dreams. I think I've talked about them before. One was I was in a mall, but all the floor was just all uneven, and I didn't know where I was, and I was trying to figure out how to get out of there, and after a little while, I realized this is a dream because there's no building that would ever have a floor like this, because it was just too uneven everywhere. Um, but then I also had a dream once about being in a hallway and it just ending and there just being a drop off. And I can only tell it was a drop off because I could see it continued kind of in a way towards a doorway, like a company, like a commercial building doorway. But I could see the drop off, and I actually just laid down on the floor in that dream and just had my hands over the edge of the drop off just so I knew I wouldn't go over it. And that's kind of when I realized that was a dream too. But I can still see both of those pretty clearly, at least the floors and then
Oh
the
my
floor in
gosh.
the mall and then that one, the hallway dream. I can see that really clearly. And and then there's the stairway. I don't know if I ever told you about that one. I know I mentioned these other two before, but I had a dream once about being on a stairway with my cane, but the stairway was just infinitely long going down, which is, of course, it makes sense because I have no depth perception, so of course it'd be going down. And it was just all darkness all around, no railings, of course. And I put my cane down on a step, and the cane did something that canes don't do in real life. It basically just shattered into a bunch of pieces and fell. And then I fell.
Oh
Uh,
no.
and then woke up. Didn't realize it was a dream, but anyway, but I remember those clearly. But there's so many other dreams now where I can remember bits and pieces of them, and I can remember the what happened in them, but
Yeah.
little to no visual left as far as I can tell now in my mind.
Well, and we're almost at, well, I have one so bad, scary dream. This was a scary dream that I had
Yeah,
that stands out. And I don't have a lot of scary dreams. I don't have a lot of, I mean, I have unsettling dreams, and this one was basically, it was unsettling.
yeah.
And in it, so before it began, I used to do, before I go to bed, because I was tracking all my dreams and everything, I was writing them down. But before I went to bed, I was like laying in bed and I was doing this slow, intentional breathing. And I
Hmm.
just drifted off to sleep without noticing I'd fallen asleep. And I would do this, I would try to do that because it would help me to like lucid dream. So
Okay.
I would do this very deep breathing. So anyway, I was going into this dream and I fell asleep though. And so I was completely in the dream. I wasn't lucid dreaming. I was just watching it. And I saw this hill. It was almost cartoonish. Like I could see just a mound. And there was one singular light in the dark over this hill. And there was something on top of the hill, and I could see things coming and going out of the dark to the top of this hill. And as I got closer, I could see that it was vultures, and there were vultures landing on this hill and there. And then it flashed to this other image. And in this image, I was walking in a city, and it was like dusk. And there were brick buildings and concrete and sidewalks. And there was this little boy I was like babysitting or something. And he was like probably 9 years old or something like that. and he was walking on right beside me and everything. And I was running an errand because I said I have to go in here. And there was some other, I was like, wait right here. I told him to wait right there. I'm going to go inside and I'll be right back. So I went inside of this brick building, walked up these steps, went down this hallway. And the hallway it was like all these different doors, like a business building. And there were like, it was lit by single, like very low light. And nothing even happened in there. Whatever I was trying to do there, I couldn't find who I was looking for or whatever. And I came back out and he wasn't there. The kid I was watching. And
Yeah.
so I got really worried. And so I started walking and looking for him. And I found him playing at like those docks that trucks back up into
Yeah.
and load stuff off into buildings. And there were all these kids playing around this docking area. And there was like, they were just all walking up and down and balancing and playing right there and laughing and everything. And I came and he was sitting on the edge of the concrete with, and I went and sat down beside him and I was kind of getting onto him. I was like, I told you to wait right there for me. I was really worried about you and da 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 da. And he gets this weird look on his face and he's looking behind me. And I see these two arms, like right at the last second, like wrap around me like a hug from behind. And
Mm.
they're arms of another like kid. And he wraps his arms around my upper body, like over my arms. And then he just falls backward off the side of that dog. And I just fall with him because I don't have my
Mm.
arms. And he was like, I was unable to move my arms. And I just fell backwards into like an abyss. Like it was just
Yeah.
darkness, just falling. And like that kid was just like holding on to me. It
Right.
was the weirdest thing. And I woke up like in this whole, panic state. It was a scary dream.
Wow. Yeah. I have one I can tell you real quick. It involves falling, and then we'll end this. But I remember this one from when I was a kid too. More so waking up from it, even though I can still see part of it in my mind. When I was a kid, I had this dream one night that I was playing on this. It was like one of those little play structures, but like a wooden one inside a classroom in a school. And I knew what classroom it was. It was a classroom for kids with low vision, and so I knew the plaything that I was on. But it's funny because in real life I would never climb up it because I don't like not having my feet in the ground. But I climbed on it in this dream, and it started to fall, and I started to fall with it, and everything just went to black. But I felt like I was falling for a second or two, even after everything went black, until I woke up. And I got out of bed and I looked outside the window, and it was like a full moon, and it was just so full. I've never seen the full moon like this again, so I don't know if it was anything anomalous or not. But there was the full moon, and I was awake at this point. There was the full moon, and then there was another dimmer circle of light all the way around the full moon,
Oh, a
which,
halo.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I have never seen to this day again. I don't know how I was able to see it that night, but then never saw it again, or if I just have never had the right timing to see it again the way I saw it that night. It almost feels anomalous now that I remember it, years later, because of how big it was. It seemed like it was huge, and then that halo around it. So I don't know if how much of that is connected to each other or not, but all that combined, like I still remember that one to this day. So
It's just amazing how they stand with you. Like I had so much, there were fighting dreams. Like I
mm,
had it's just so strange. I had like like this, it's just so much, of
hmm
an internal world in the dream state
yeah,
of, especially when I was really tracking it and everything. But a lot of these I'm talking about were not when I was necessarily tracking them very closely. I was just using some of the same methods, but some of them were without anything at all. You just go to sleep, expect a normal night of sleep, and it would be like this epic, ridiculous dream, you know, of
yeah,
like fighting in a sand pit and like weird stuff like that. Because it's crazy how vivid the mind can get. And a lot of times you're just wondering, like, where does this even come from? And that's why there's so
Right.
much fascination with the dream realm, I think, at least in my part of how I
Oh
feel
yeah.
about it. But it's amazing that we remember the dreams as well as we remember the experiences we have day to day. And in particular, how, like I said before, for me anyway, I recall many of the events of my life due to the experiences that stand out so profound as being unusual. I guess you'd call them, paranormal experiences have made me
Right.
recall and remember memories from different times in my life. So I'm glad we talked about this. But yeah,
Yeah, and it's odd to me that those paranormal experiences I had, I don't remember much around them, even though they were odd experiences in and of themselves. But yeah, I think we can definitely still do a dream show at some point as well. Um, Between our own and then just looking into things, I think that'd be a good show to do. So we'll put that on the list.
we got
But
we have
yeah,
a hypnosis and dreams.
yes,
So
yep.
we brought up on this one. I'm not
We still have
writing
to
these
do.
down. I hope you are because
I am now. I wasn't for a
we all
while, and then
have.
I know, I forgot one or something at one point, and after forgetting one, I was like, nope, I'm writing these down from now on. So
That's a good
yeah,
way.
we still have 3 a.m. to do, which
Yes,
is
forgot about
connects.
that one.
We still have cemeteries to do, but we're gonna wait and schedule Ricky to be in with us for that one. So
I think that'll be
we've
a lot
got
of fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
we've got plenty of topics to cover. So thank you as always, Jen, for being here.
and thank you. Have a great.
You as well. And thank you all for listening as well. And I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.